All right, hey guys, this is DP here, and I've been throwing around this idea of starting a podcast to capture some of the stories, like behind the Chicago church, some of the stories behind our staff mentors' lives, some of my experiences and my thoughts on different things, and kind of use that as an additional touch point that people being like students and people interested in our church can have. And I've been asking some people about it. The feedback I've gotten is that it sounds super interesting and we should try it. And so this is our first go at it. So what you'll hear now is a conversation between me and Tofunmi. It'll be our episode 1 or maybe episode 0, since we don't even have an official name yet. But yeah, just our thoughts on what this podcast could be. All right, hope you enjoy.
All right, hey, how you doing?
All right, I'm doing good. So we're recording for the first time here on the 4th floor of Greenwood.
Yep.
Because we're trying to produce this podcast, right? So
we are
podcast. All right.
Yeah, DP's house has 4 floors. I'm still a little out of breath from bringing all the equipment up here to do this rendition.
Nice.
How are you feeling right now, DP?
I'm feeling good.
Cool.
Getting used to this new equipment here. We've got mics. We've got headphones on. We're hearing each other really intimately with these headphones. So
yeah. It looks
I think just kind of getting used to it.
Yeah, that's cool. We look really professional right now. How does it feel to hear? I guess you preach, but how does it feel to like hear your own voice? Like, what was your first experience of that like?
I am actually very used to hearing my own voice.
Cool.
Now, because after years of preaching, after every service, I actually listen to my own recordings. So,
wow.
My policy is if everyone else has to listen to it, then I should listen to it too. So yeah, but at first it was super weird because it's like, wait, is that what I sound like? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you're pretty used to that now, you say?
Pretty used to it. Yeah,
cool.
Pretty used to that now.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was always like, I always feel like kind of cringe when I first hear my voice recorded on a video or something. So that's cool. They listen to your messages.
Yeah.
But cool. Here we are. Like DP said, this is our first trying for this podcast. So DP, you want to tell us a little bit about what you think this podcast is going to be about? Yeah,
so I think one of the ideas that I've been trying to, one of the problems that I've been trying to solve, I guess, in church life, college ministry life is sort of like, how do we tell more stories about like our church, and not just our church, but kind of our staff mentors, our members, like kind of their stories, what it's like to live as a Christian in our world and our society. And particularly like, how does that like work out at our church, at Grace Point, and what have people's experience been? And I feel like there's, a need to like keep telling those stories. And so I thought maybe a podcast would be one of the ways in which we could start archiving that, or kind of getting that out there so that people who are interested can hear more about that. So that's part of the motivation for this. Yeah,
of course. What do you feel about like the current time that we're in now lends itself to this being like a good chance to have a podcast like this? Like, do you feel something's changed over the last few years where it kind of warrants like this different medium to communicate like what you express about our church's values and who we are? Yeah, that's a good question. I think a couple of things come to mind. Okay, so like I think one thing is that a lot of how we used to do ministry and tell these kinds of stories that I'm referring to was just through like a lot of hanging out together. You know, like people, I think, back when I was in college, and maybe, even when you were in college, like we did a lot of just being together, whether it's on campus at the library or just going over to people's places, and a lot of like just hanging out with the same group of people all the time. And I think then kind of the older ones, the ones who went a couple years before you, like their stories and kind of how they were, that kind of rubbed off on you. But I feel like nowadays we don't get that dynamic as much. And I think part of it is like people's kind of social worlds and things like that. It's like, a lot of it's online nowadays. Yeah. And then I find that people have a lot of different like smaller groups of friends that they kind of move around between. And so, and then I think the reality is that people are busier nowadays, like college students, just people in general. Yeah. And so then I think, and then people listen to podcasts a lot. Like podcasts have like blown up in the past few years. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, well, why don't we just try that out, like as a medium to tell those stories? I mean, the spoken word, like telling each other stories and hearing from each other, like listening in on conversations, that's all a part of like how we get to know each other and how some of those culture has gotten passed down over the years. Yeah. And so
I feel like, yeah, podcast, spoken form, it could work.
Yeah.
So just wanted to give it a try.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you make up a good point as well with regards to how previously it seems like it was easier to pass those things down just because we're in each other's lives more often, spending time together. But I can imagine with the pandemic and the onset of remote learning and not really gathering in person as much, I feel like that probably did exacerbate like that transition to online media being the main form through which we interact. I do agree that in-person interaction, like you described, is a bit lost now. So I think this is a cool way, like you mentioned, to try to bridge that gap that they're experiencing today.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So what would you say the goal of the podcast is then? Like, are you trying to have this be something for a large, like, national audience, or is it more of like a local desire to address the people in your local church community?
Toph, I'm gonna become number 1 on Apple Podcasts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal.
Nice.
No. Yeah, I think the goal is really just to provide people an additional touch point. Like, what by people I mean like, people in our congregation, our students, maybe people who are interested in joining our church, but kind of want to find out more. And then our like regular members, our upperclassmen, our staff, even for a chance, it's to provide them like a way to hear each other, right? Hear each other's stories, get to know more about each other. And I wanted to have even things like, ask me anything. Like that's so popular nowadays. Like, if people listen to things or they hear things during sermons and they want to ask something, right? Like we'll just have an open forum where people can fill that out. We'll, if we get a certain number of questions, we'll do those things too. We'll ask questions. And I think one of the things that someone said to me recently that was really helpful was like, oh, like a DP, like, office hours, like I don't particularly have any, like, because Kata and I, we have office hours with people. Like if they want to meet up with us at a cafe or something to ask any questions they have. But then some people express like, oh, I don't have a lot of questions myself, but like I would love to like listen in on someone else's office hours to hear what you guys talk about. Cause like, I don't know what I don't know. Like, I don't even know what to ask. And then, from my perspective, I'm like, okay, maybe it's a little intimidating for them to like, I don't know, meet up with me for office hours.
Yeah. I can see
but kind of this sense of like wanting to listen in, like curious about like how our staff, how our church views certain things, like how do we process, how do we choose to live out a certain way, like in terms of Christian life. I feel like this could be a way to, I don't know, let people listen in and kind of hear what we value and what we think is important. So those are some of my goals for this. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, that's exciting too. Because like with what you mentioned earlier too about the reality of people being busier now, especially college students on a campus like UChicago, I can totally see how, like it's even harder for us to kind of facilitate like the kind of life on life interactions that the kind of time demand that kind of thing can have for each of us. So I think this is a cool way for us to, like in a way, kind of cater to that by creating some on-demand stuff people can just pull down. While they're doing laundry, whatever, like while they're doing like a really boring problem set or something. Yeah, exactly.
They want something in the background. Something like that.
No, I feel that. That's cool. Do you have any topics like off the top of your mind that you feel like, oh, I really would love to talk to the audience about this kind of topics, or am I just going to try to figure it out as we go? Yeah, I mean, I think we will definitely figure it out as we go. Yeah. I definitely want to talk to Toph about how he got so buff. That's a whole podcast in itself. No, but more seriously, like, I think a lot of just, I want maybe the first set of podcasts to be about like stories, like how people came to, to be saved. For each of our staff mentors, I could imagine interviewing them, and they all have their different kind of interests and passions and kind of unique stories, which I think we could delve into. Yeah. Right. So I imagine just interviewing each of them, getting a little bit of their backgrounds and things like that. And then like, I don't know, also like just sharing updates. Like, so recently we had a youth retreat, which a lot of our students and our staff participated in. And it'd be really neat to do an episode where we talk about how that even came to be, like the planning process. How do we even meet this pastor at this church? And then maybe even interview him like for a portion of that and kind of get his thoughts on like how beneficial that was for his students, and also use it as a way to encourage and to give praise to God for like the things that are happening in our community already, which, we don't really have like a context where we can kind of delve further into that, but maybe through this we can have more of those kinds of
sharing stories of encouragement, things like that too.
Yeah, of course. That's awesome. Sweet. But yeah, since it is a podcast, I was curious if you have any ideas other than defenestration for the name of the podcast.
Defenestration. Yeah. Earlier we were brainstorming some names, and Agape, one of our staff, he said that we should call this defenestration, since he knows that that's my favorite word in the world. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it means to throw someone out the window.
Great.
And so he was saying we should call it defenestration, and and the subtitle can be throw your ideas about Christian life and church out the window, and, and discover whatever, something. He had something clever, but yeah, I don't know. Some people really want to call it D-Pod.
D-Pod, cool.
Dude, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Sounds like iPod.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to think about that some more. Maybe it'll just be something really boring, like
Yeah, for sure.
Grace Point Stories with David Park or something.
Yeah. That's cool.
we'll see.
Something low key. Yeah. Yeah, Agape's description sounded a little bit like an infomercial when you were describing it to me.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can fully own that. I think it's really funny, but I don't know if I can own that.
Yeah, for sure. That's fun. Cool. Yeah, like in the topic of podcasts, do you have any favorite podcasts that you listen to? And like, when do you typically listen to the podcast that you like?
Yeah, I probably listen to way too many podcasts. I love podcasts.
Yeah.
I think it's a really fascinating way to learn things and to kind of find out about what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to listen to Up First like every day, it's like NPR's daily news podcast. You get up in the morning, it's already there waiting for you, summarizes the news. But I really enjoy like How I Built This with Guy Raz. And, it's like interviewing entrepreneurs, people who've started businesses, and kind of the journeys that they went on. I listen to the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast. He interviews a lot of business leaders, church leaders, and on a variety of topics. So I just find those fascinating, not just for the leadership principles, but the stories of the people that are being interviewed.
Yeah,
that's a big one. And then I really like 99% Invisible,
cool.
which is a podcast about architecture and design, like design and how design fits into the real world. And so they have episodes about everything from architecture to like flags. Like one of my favorite episodes from there was about like the design of flags and how, and then they actually talk about the Chicago flag in that episode, which is really
cool.
fascinating. So
yeah, that's awesome. And when do you usually get to listen to these? Is it just like in transit, or if you're working on like something kind of mundane, or?
Definitely not while I'm message prepping. But it's usually like when I'm driving somewhere.
Cool.
Right? Like we drive like 15 minutes one way to pick up Lucas, or drop off Lucas in the morning at daycare. So that's a time when I'm commuting basically, and usually when I'm doing chores around the house, fixing something up with the car, cleaning, folding laundry, whatever it is, I'm usually listening to something.
That's awesome.
Taking out the trash, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, podcasts are a pretty good way to get some pull down content then. Yeah, because you don't have to like sit down and create a space for you to listen to it, but you can do it. Like in the rhythm of your day-to-day tasks, right?
Yeah. And I end up not listening to podcasts that are too heavy in material. So like I know Reasonable Faith, like I listen to Reasonable Faith when I really am interested in that topic and I'm going to focus and listen. But sometimes the material there is, it's like philosophy, it's apologetics, so it's a little heady. So then like I find that it's hard for me to do that while I'm doing something. Otherwise I don't get much out of it. But I really enjoy those podcasts where it's kind of just people talking and it's their story.
Yeah.
So even if you miss a sentence or two, like, you still get the gist of it.
Yeah.
So I feel like, like on this podcast, I'm hoping to do a lot of stories so that, people can kind of listen to it as they're doing other things and things like that.
Yeah, of course. Did you start listening to podcasts recently, or has that been a thing since you were younger?
I feel like it started mostly during COVID, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So past few years.
Cool.
Yeah. I think a couple of them, I started listening to maybe like 5-6 years ago, but really kind of picking it up more during the COVID years.
Yeah, that's cool. And there's a lot more content out there now too.
Yeah, for sure. It blew up a lot last couple of years.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. What does Kata think about the podcast idea?
She's pretty supportive. She thinks it's a good idea. She just doesn't want to be filmed for it. Yeah. Or like she doesn't literally want like a video. Like she I told her like, hey, come on, like you should do some episodes and things like that, and she's down.
Yeah.
But then she just, because I was throwing out the idea of doing a video podcast. Right. And she was like, that one I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
So if we end up doing that, then I'll have to convince her.
For sure. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool that she's supportive about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm
Toph,
pretty- yeah.
why don't you share a little bit about yourself here?
Yeah.
Since I asked you kind of to come on as a co-host, right? In like I think in some of these episodes I'm going to be interviewing people and things like that, so I'll act as a host. But then some of these episodes, like maybe I'm the one being interviewed, and so then I asked you to, if you would mind being the co-host for this.
Yeah.
So what's what was your initial reaction to this podcast idea, and kind of where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, for sure. Like DP said, my name's Toph, full name Tofunmi. And DP initially asked me about the podcast idea. I think it was like three or 4 days ago, actually. And I thought it sounded pretty cool. Like, I totally agree with him in the sense that I feel like it's hard to communicate some of the things that I've come to love and cherish about trying to live out Christian life on a day-to-day basis. I'm here in Chicago. Particularly about like stories of people showing like radical generosity or getting close with their friends. Like a lot of those things you don't really get a chance to share with people in the regular course of the day because you're just not around people that much. So I really like the idea of being able to communicate those things that are really important to our church and our community, to the people that we're trying to love on and care for right now on the East Chicago campus. So I felt pretty excited about that idea personally, and thought that, wow, this is a great way for us to begin the conversation on those things and even potentially have follow-ups with people if they have questions about what we talked about on the pod. So I like that idea a lot. I'm looking forward to, having a chance to pass down some of those values that we care and love so much in our community down to the people coming after us. So yeah, that's what I was really excited about.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And what would you say is your qualification
My qualification
to be a co-host on this preeminent podcast?
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. That's pretty heavy. Let's see. I like podcasts a lot too. I listen to a lot of particularly like news and like business news podcasts. I listen to some like interview style podcasts too. One that I really like is called T-Boy, the best one yet. It's like a 50-minute digest of daily like business news. Then there's one I believe is called Campus Ministry Today.
Oh yeah.
So that one's pretty cool too. It's a podcast about campus ministry and different people in the space kind of sharing their thoughts and views and ideas, or interviewing other people who are engaged in campus ministry. That's also pretty cool. Primarily like news podcasts and some interviews. I really enjoy like kind of listening in on conversations too. Like it just kind of sounds cool because you get to learn a little bit more about the people who are in that interaction, about their own backgrounds and stuff like that too. And I felt like I kind of learned how to ask, like, I guess, better questions too from listening to podcasts. So I'm pretty excited about this to get to chat with you and obviously learn more about you too, because I feel like there's a lot I don't know about you just yet. So it'll be pretty fun.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Yeah. I'm always amazed by the ability of some of those podcasters to ask like the right question to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
So I feel like for us, it'll also be like good training. Right?
Yeah.
It's like as we try to draw stories out of people, like I feel like that's such an important skill in ministry and in life.
Exactly.
And and then it just makes for good conversation. So I think that's what I think I'm personally excited to try this. And like you said, like having conversations with our various staff, maybe even interviewing some of our students, and getting it's like a different context in which we get to know each other. So I feel like that'll be really good.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Any last questions or any thoughts before we end here?
No, I think I'm good. We should probably get some cool like intro, outro music for the pod as well.
Yeah. Well, you don't like my you don't like that, huh?
I dig it. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to spice it up as we go here. Yeah. All right. Well, it's almost dinner time for us right now, so that's it for our first episode.
Yeah.
Of whatever we call this.
Yeah.
Defenestration.
Defenestration, sure.
As our project name for now.
Yeah.
Defenestration. All right. Throw your ideas of church life out the window.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Toph.
Yeah, thank you, DP.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that was our first and our only take. And so I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I was feeling like as we were recording that, this could work. And I think it would be a good way for me to connect with different people and for people to listen in on those conversations. So if you have any thoughts on, things you would like to hear about, ways to make this better, please definitely send it my way because I'm super interested in that. But otherwise, subscribe and hopefully we'll have some more episodes soon.